What serial killer disturbs you the most? Those who haven't been caught yet. All of the ones who haven't been caught are by far the scariest to me, because there's no way of knowing exactly how many they've killed, and in some cases, no way to know whether or not they are still active. Toy box killer. I can take a lot of shit. I can handle some messed up stories, but I cannot listen to that recording all the way through. Robert Pickton is a close second. Toy box killer and his girlfriend basically kidnapped women as sex slaves, kept them in a trailer full of torture instruments. They'd also have sex parties and allow their friends access to their slaves. They took so many women that they got tired of explaining to each one what was going on, that he made a recording to give them a rundown when they awoke from being drugged. That recording was recovered when they were found out. It's about as bad as you would imagine, maybe worse. Jeffrey Dahmer raped, murdered, and then cannibalized young boys and men, sometimes not in that order. He also tried to make zombies by drilling holes in heads and dumping acid inside. Albert Fish was another cannibal rapist, and also molested children. He was super into some weird shit, and got lots of satisfaction from self-harm. One young guy managed to escape Dahmer's apartment. He was found wandering the streets, disoriented and bleeding from his rectum. 2 women found him, and tried to talk to him, to find out what was going on. They also called the police. Police show up to the call, but by then, Dahmer found the kid, and tried to get him back to the apartment. The women weren't letting him go though. Dahmer spins some bullshit story about a lover's quarrel to the police, and they believed him. When the women point out the rectal bleeding, police told the women to shut up, and let Dahmer take the kid with him. The young guy was murdered not long after. After Dahmer was arrested, the police were fired from that department, but their badges weren't taken away, so they got hired at another department. One of them later became a president of a police association, a complete travesty of justice. Dennis Rader, BTK, was a family friend, went to my nana's church, and did Cub Scouts with my uncles. When he was caught, one of my uncles was freaking out, because he taught me the knots he used. He had a camera roll, full of pictures of him tied up, posing in the lingerie of women he killed. He used his jobs as an alarm tech, and as city code enforcer, to gain access to people's homes. If you want or wanted to write him in prison, you had to fill out an application. The dude is a convicted serial killer, and makes you think you have to try, and earn the right to write him. The weepy, voiced killer. He killed young women, then called the cops, and reported it himself. He even called police once they reported on it, and got the facts wrong. His calls were so unnerving, it was like listening to someone trying to force themselves to feel any remorse. Ed Kemper. He seems like the type of guy you'd strike up a convo with at the grocery store. He seems so sane when he talks, if you don't think about what he really did. Very calm sounding. He's also 6'9", which is horrifying. He was a necrophile, who murdered 10 people, including his grandparents and his mother. He often killed his victims in a really brutal way. It's disgusting. He'd rape them, kill them, then cut their heads off, and sexually assault the neck hole. Did it to his mother, and her friend, and several others. He was a monster. Peter Scully. This guy is a complete bag of shit. I don't know if he's still alive, or not, but he should suffer pain every day of his worthless life. He's a child rapist, torturer, and murderer. Raped and tortured a 5-year-old girl, made 2 other girls dig their own graves. The list goes on. Luis Garavito, also known as La Bestia, he tortured, raped, and killed 138 children and teenagers, and claimed to have killed 300 children and teenagers. He killed the ones who were homeless, or orphaned, because no one would file a report on them. The scariest serial killers are the ones who know how to work the system, and know what demographics of people will not be reported missing. Cannibal and necrophile. Richard Chase, the vampire of Sacramento. He's a super creepy dude, but also a little bit sad, in that he was obviously mentally cracked right from his youth, and yet, he was just kind of ignored, and left to fend for himself. Once alone in the apartment, Chase began to capture, kill, and disembowel various animals, which he would then devour raw, sometimes mixing the raw organs with Coca-Cola in a blender, and drink the concoction. Chase believed that by ingesting the creatures, he was preventing his heart from shrinking. Later investigation uncovered that, In mid-1977, Chase was stopped and arrested on a reservation in the Pyramid Lake, Nevada, area. His body was smeared with blood, and a bucket of blood was found in his truck. The blood was determined to be cow's blood, and no charges were filed. He attempted to enter the home of a woman 2 weeks later, but because her doors were locked, he walked away. Chase later told detectives that he took locked doors as a sign that he was not welcome, but unlocked doors were an invitation to come inside. He was once caught, and chased off, by a couple returning home, as he pilfered their belongings. He had also urinated and defecated on their infant child's bed and clothing. Chase was arrested shortly afterwards. Police who searched Chase's apartment found that the walls, floor, ceiling, refrigerator, and all of Chase's eating and drinking utensils, were soaked in blood. His fellow inmates, aware of the extremely violent nature of Chase's crimes, feared him, and according to prison officials, often tried to persuade Chase to commit suicide. H. Holmes, and his murder castle. He had it built and modified with soundproof rooms, secret doorways, hidden passages, airtight gas chambers, and chutes directly to the basement, where he would send his dead bodies, dissect them, then sell the organs on the black market, sell the skeletons to medical labs and schools, and dissolve everything else in vats of acid, or burn it all in the basement's crematorium. He got away with a lot more than just murder. His entire life was just one criminal enterprise after another, that he'd constantly get away with. Fred and Rose West, a married couple, they sexually abused, tortured, and beat their child and teenage daughters, and other women, eventually killing several of their own children, along with other women, and burying them under the patio in their own garden. Unlike many husband-wife murder pairs, the wife Rose was completely in on it, and took pleasure in the murders, committing some alone while her husband was in prison. Apparently, Fred would threaten his surviving children, saying they would end up under the patio like Heather, his own daughter, who they beat to death, because they didn't like the look on her face, if they misbehaved. Clifford Olson, a serial killer in BC, who raped and killed 11 kids. He died in prison of cancer. Back in 2011, the Ken and Barbie killers, Carla Homolka and Paul Bernardo, they only raped and murdered 3 people, that we know of, but one of them was Carla's sister. As a present for Paul, she got a plea deal, claiming she was being abused, was unwilling, and Paul convinced her to kill with him. Except later, the police found videotapes of the killings, and Carla sure as hell wasn't being an unwilling participant. Paul is in jail the rest of his life. Carla was released in 2005, and last I heard, she has a husband and kids. Luke McNaughter also disturbed me. I watched the Netflix special, Don't FCK with Cats, so of course I hate him killing kittens. The fact that he posted the videos, and the police did nothing to stop him, also disturbed me. Killing animals is a gateway to killing people, and they could have stopped him, but didn't. It is hilarious, though, that he got caught because of his own hubris.